Official. I'm joined now by Ronna McDaniel. She's chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, and I'm glad to have you here. Ronna, I know that yesterday I think it was yesterday, you had a chance to be over at the White House and perhaps even talk to the president, and I wondered if you could describe the mood and the approach going into this important meeting with the North Koreans.
Yeah, I was with the president yesterday. Actually, we were at an event in Dallas together and came back to Washington. And I think the president recognizes that this is an important time for our country. I'm not going to speak about these private meetings regarding North Korea, but I can tell you firsthand, we are seeing this across the country in our polling, that people are looking to the president and saying this is finally somebody who is moving the dial with North Korea. He is trying to de-escalate the tensions that we have had with the North Koreans, and he has moved the ball a lot further than previous administrations. And it just shows the strength of President Trump's ability to negotiate and to be tough and to put America in a position where we are going to demand that they denuclearize, and we've already seen headway with the 3 hostages coming back, and I think that these are going to be very fruitful discussions today.
This comes on the day that the president, let everyone know that he was happy with the jobs report that was coming out. It came out. It was certainly good. An 18-year record, unemployment at 3.8%. And it was curious to me. I just wonder, I know that you have polling and poll testing and you know what messages work. And I wonder if Leader Pelosi, if they have very different polling, because she said May's job reports shows that the strong employment numbers mean little to the families hit with soaring new costs under the Republicans' watch. Republicans' cruel, cynical healthcare sabotage campaign is already spiking families' premiums by double digits and pushing millions off their coverage, according to the nonpartisan CBO. I've looked at these numbers. I know that Republicans care most about jobs and the economy. The Democrats seem to care most about healthcare. Do they think that that is the Republicans' weakness?
Well, let's just look at Obamacare. The Democrats own Obamacare. They put in a failing health care plan, and it is hurting millions of Americans, and it was hurting them before President Trump came into office. And we have seen time and time again, Democrats are refusing to come to the table and work with this president on health care, and they own that. And when it comes to jobs and the economy, listen, the Democrat Party is about rhetoric. The Republican Party is about results.
If you could just hold on for a moment, because we've been waiting for over an hour. The president has been meeting with this North Korean official in the Oval Office, quite a prestigious opportunity for the North Koreans. The president there just shaking hands with them as they are about to depart. They delivered a letter to from Kim Jong-un to the president. Certainly saved a lot on postage because they were able to bring it over to him. And we'll see here if the president actually says anything to the pool. John Roberts, our reporter there at the White House, is in the pool today. It could be that the president doesn't make any comments right away. He is about to leave for Camp David for the weekend. And if he does what he typically does, he might have an opportunity to stop by and talk to the pool. So we'll get a sense of what that meeting was like. Ronna, let me ask you about how the Democrats, in your opinion, have played this North Korean developments. I understand that you see the polling across the board where it says that Americans feel like this is going in the right direction. The Democrats have been very critical of the president, even when there are advances like this on the world stage. Your thoughts on how they're positioning themselves?
Well, we've seen some really unfortunate things come out of the Democrats with regards to North Korea. When they thought the summit was canceled, they were mocking the president. They were saying that Kim Jong-un was giggling. I don't think there's anything to giggle about. Listen, Kim Jong-un is a leader who has treated his people horribly. He has threatened multiple countries across this world with nuclear annihilation. I mean, this isn't a person that we should be rooting for. And it's sad to see Democrats entrenched so far in their partisanship that they're not even rooting for our president. The president has made huge headway. We should all be championing this. We should all be rooting for this. This is good for our country, and it is good for our world to have these negotiations happening. We do not want North Korea to be nuclear capable.
All right, Ronna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We're going to continue to talk about this with Chris Starwald, who's stuck around. You can't get away from me that easily. The North Korean official still having a chance to talk to the president there as he says goodbye to them as they delivered that letter to the president. Obviously, you can't tell anything in particular about a meeting that lasts for over an hour, but you certainly can't imagine President Trump sitting in there with somebody who he wasn't feeling like it was productive to have a conversation with them.
Right, and Trump wants him to take the message back to Pyongyang, which is, we are not going to kill you. We are not going to, the big gaffe before, if you recall, was people in the administration talking about the Libya option, where Libya denuclearized, but Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator of that country, ended up dead. And if you are the Kim regime, you are brutal dictators. If some of the people in your country got a hold of you, they'd do worse to you than they did to Gaddafi.
Take a look here at the screen, and the president calling over other North Koreans that are with the traveling party and taking this picture and making sure that Kim Jong-un and the North Korean people, you can bet that this picture will be blasted all over state television in North Korea.
Yeah, this is a big moment for the Kim regime. They're at the White House. This is, a once upon a time part of the axis of evil. Now welcome at the White House, embraced by the president. This is the former spy master of that country, of that regime, and he is being embraced and welcomed in by the leading Western power. This is a moment. This is one for the history books.
Secretary of State Pompeo, on his 31st day, he's there with the president in that photograph. I hope he's keeping a diary, Chris, because it's been a whirlwind of diplomacy for him. He is the first person to actually go to Pyongyang, the first American to sit down and talk with Kim Jong-un, and figuring out a way to make this diplomacy happen on behalf of the president.
Right, and then he has to play another round of shuttle diplomacy with the Japanese, South Koreans, and Chinese. What will all of the other parties to this accept? What are they willing to take on in terms of a deal? The president clearly wants a deal, but at what price, and what are our allies and our foes in that region willing to accept and do? Unified Korean Peninsula, denuclearized, in what way? Who's in charge? How does this go? Where does Kim end up?
Another thing, Chris, as we look at this video, it's not usual that a president will actually leave the Oval Office and escort an official back to their vehicles. This is a sign and a showing of real respect and a willingness to be gracious to the North Koreans, and I think this could probably go a long way. We know a little bit more about Kim Jong-un than we have in the past. We had no real intelligence there, but now Secretary of State Pompeo has met with them a couple of times. We have more information. We'll see if the president talks to the press.
We'll be meeting on June 12th in Singapore. It went very well. It's really a get-to-know-you kind of a situation. Mike has spent 2 days doing this. We've gotten to know their people very well, and you people are going to have to travel because you'll be in Singapore on June 12th. And I think it'll be a process. It's not, I never said it goes in one meeting. I think it's going to be a process. But the relationships are building, and that's a very positive thing.
Mr. President, what's your sense of what the North Koreans are willing to do on the issue of denuclearization?
I think they want to do that. I know they want to do that. They want other things along the line. They want to develop as a country. That's going to happen, I have no doubt. Japan is involved, as you know, and South Korea is very much involved. We're involved in terms of getting everything. Everybody wants the United States, so we're going to help in the process very much. Without us, it wouldn't happen. But I think that you see a lot of very positive things, including with China. I think you see a lot of very positive things happening with President Xi, who has helped me quite a bit with this. So we'll see where it leads, but we're going to be June 12th. We'll be in Singapore. It'll be a beginning. I don't say, and I've never said it happens in one meeting. You're talking about years of hostility, years of problems, years of really hatred between so many different nations. But I think you're going to have a very positive result in the end, not from one meeting. You
appear to question their sincerity in your letter to Kim Jong-un last week. Have they gone far enough now?
Well, don't forget, my letter was a response to their letter. The media forgot that. The media said, oh, you had a meeting, then you canceled. I didn't cancel the meeting. I canceled it in response to a very tough statement. And I think we're over that, totally over that. And now we're going to deal, and we're going to really start a process. We're meeting with the chairman on June 12th. And I think it's probably going to be a very successful, ultimately a successful process. We'll see. Remember what I say. We will see what we will see. But I think it's going to be a process that we deserve to have. I mean, we really deserve. They want it. We think it's important. And I think we would be making a big mistake if we didn't have it. I think we're going to have a relationship, and it'll start on June 12th.
What can you get done in one meeting? What can you get done on June 12th?
Well, this was a very good meeting. Don't forget, this was a meeting where a letter was given to me by Kim Jong-un, and that letter was a very nice letter. Oh, would you like to see what was in that letter? Would you like? How much? How much? How much?
Can you just give us a flavor of what the letter said?
It was a very interesting letter, and at some point it may be appropriate, and maybe I'll be able to give it to you. Maybe you'll be able to see it, and maybe fairly soon. But really, this was a letter presentation that ended up being a 2-hour conversation.
Why did it end up going so long?
Because we found the whole subject matter very interesting, and because I really think they want to do something, and if it's possible, so do we.
What did he ask you?
I think all we're going to do is be there on June 12th, and we're going to see what happens. Mike has been dealing very well. They have a very good relationship with Mike Pompeo, our Secretary of State. It was actually very interesting because this was literally going to be the delivery of a letter, and it ended up being a 2-hour conversation with the second most powerful man in North Korea.
Did he ask you about levels in South Korea?
We talked about almost everything. We talked about a lot. And we talked about sanctions.
Did they agree to CBID?
I don't want to say that. We talked about a lot of things. We really did. But the big deal will be on June 12th. And again, it's a process. It doesn't go. We're not going to go in and sign something on June 12th. We never were. We're going to start a process. And I told them today, take your time. You can go fast. We can go slowly. But I think they'd like to see something happen. And if we can work that out, that'd be good. But the process will begin on June 12th in Singapore.
Do you believe Kim is committed to denuclearization?
Yeah, I do think so. He'd like to see it happen. He just wants to be careful. He wants to be, he's not going to run and do things. But I told him, to be honest with you, look, we have sanctions on. They're very powerful sanctions. We would not take sanctions off unless they do that. But the sanctions are very powerful. You've seen how powerful in other ways. You're going to see how powerful sanctions are when it comes to Iran. You see what that's doing to Iran. So we have sanctions on. And at a certain point, I'll tell you what, I look forward to the day when I can take the sanctions off of North Korea.
Did you talk about human rights today, and do you expect to talk about it?
We did not talk about human rights.
Do you expect to talk about it on June 12th?
Could be, yeah, could be. I think we probably will, and maybe in great detail. We did not talk about human rights.
Did you talk about sanctions? Did they ask?
Yeah, we did. We talked about, yes, they asked about sanctions. Excuse me?
Maximum pressure overs?
It's going to remain what it is now. I don't even want to use the term maximum pressure anymore because I don't want to use that term. Because we're getting along. You see the relationship. We're getting along. So it's not a question of maximum pressure. It's staying essentially the way it is. At some point, hopefully, a deal for the good of millions of people, a deal will be worked out.
Mr. President, how would you describe the state of relations now between the United States and North Korea after your meetings today?
Well, I think they're okay. I mean, I think they're good. Is it like the relationships we have with a couple of other countries? Probably not, right? But I think the relationship we have right now with North Korea is as good as it's been in a long time. They had no relationship under the previous administration. There was nothing. It was nothing. They were explaining. It was just a nothing. Nothing was done. Hey, folks, this should not be up to me. This should have been handled a long time ago. This got to a very critical point. This should have been handled many years ago, not only by President Obama, but by other presidents that preceded me. This shouldn't be done now. This should have been done years ago.
Do you plan to offer the North Koreans economic aid?
Well, what's going to happen is South Korea will do that. No, I don't think the United States is going to have to spend. I think South Korea will do it. I think China, frankly, China will help out. I think that Japan will help out. No, I don't see the United States spending a lot of money. You know, we have 3 hostages. How much money did I spend for the hostages? And look, we're very far away. We are very far away. Those places are very close. That's their neighborhood. We're 6,000 miles away. So I've already told South Korea, I said, you know, you're going to have to get ready, and Japan also. And I think they really want to see something great happen. Japan does, South Korea does, and I think China does. But that's their neighborhood. It's not our neighborhood.
President, yesterday you were concerned about the meeting that Lavrov was having with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Where are you on that today?
I didn't like it, but it could be very positive, too. I didn't like the Russian meeting yesterday. I said, what's the purpose of that? But it could be a positive meeting. If it's a positive meeting, I love it. If it's a negative meeting, I'm not happy. And it could very well be a positive meeting.
South Korean war on June 12th during the summit?
Well, that could happen. That could happen. We talked about it. We talked about ending the war. And, you know, this war has been going on, it's got to be the longest war, almost 70 years, right? And there is a possibility something like that. That's more of a signing of a document that it's very important in one way. Historically, it's very important. But we'll see. We did discuss that, the ending of the Korean War. Can you believe that we're talking about the ending of the Korean War? You're talking about 70 years.
Is that document prepared, or is it being...
Well, we're going to discuss it prior to the meeting. That's something that could come out of the meeting. I think, really, that's something that maybe could come out of the meeting.
Where's China on?
I think China would like to see a very positive result. I have a lot of good relations with, as you know, Chairman Xi. He's really a very wonderful guy. He's a man that loves China. However, he wants to do what's best for China. I think China and President Xi would love to see something happen here.
When you say you're going to guarantee Kim's security and the North Korean regime's security, how will you do that? How will the United States?
Well, we're going to make sure it's secure. We're going to make sure when this is over, it's over. It's not going to be starting up again. And they have a potential to be a great country. And I think South Korea is going to help a lot. Japan's going to help a lot. I think China's going to help a lot.
How do you envision that?
Well, that's a very complicated question, frankly, but you'll see that over a period of time.
When you gave your speech in Seoul last November, you talked about the bright promise of North Korea should it choose to join the company of nations. But if you leave Kim in place, can you really have a transformation?
I really think you can, and I think it's going to be very successful. They're incredible people. I think it's going to be a very great success. So we'll see what happens. But we'll see you. We will see you on June 12th, but I'm sure we'll see you a little bit before that. In the meantime, how's Sarah doing? Okay?
Have you discussed dates for a second or a third summit?
The which one?
Have you discussed dates for
I told them I think you're going to have probably others. Hey, wouldn't it be wonderful if we walked out and everything was settled all of a sudden from sitting down for a couple of hours? Now, I don't see that happening, but I see over a period of time. And frankly, I said, take your time. Take your time. It's going to remain as is, but take your time. One thing I did do, and it was very important, we had hundreds of new sanctions ready to go on. And the director did not ask, but I said I'm not going to put them on until such time as the talks break down. We have very significant sanctions on now, but we have hundreds that are ready to go. But I said I'm not going to, but why would I do that when we're talking so nicely? So
is this first meeting more of a personal diplomacy, part of your getting to know you?
I think it's a getting to know you meeting plus. And that can be a very positive thing.
President, what was your response to the letter? Did you send anything back?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen the letter yet. I purposely didn't open the letter. I haven't opened it. I didn't open it in front of the director. I said, would you want me to open it? He said, you can read it later. I may be in for a big surprise, folks. So long, everybody.
What's the next move on NAFTA, sir?
Well, NAFTA, look, it's been a terrible deal for the United States. People are starting to see it. We lose over $100 billion a year with Mexico. We lose many, many, many billions of dollars with Canada. Canada doesn't take, they're very restrictive as to taking our agricultural product and other things. And, all of these countries, including the European Union, they charge 5 times the tariff. We don't charge tariffs, essentially. They charge 5 times what we charge for tariffs. And I believe in the word reciprocal. You're going to charge 5 times, we're going to charge 5 times. That hasn't been done. No other president ever brought it up. And it's going to be done now. So we're negotiating numerous deals. We're talking about NAFTA. To be honest with you, I wouldn't see NAFTA. I wouldn't mind seeing NAFTA, where you'd go by a different name, where you make a separate deal with Canada and a separate deal with Mexico, because you're talking about a very different 2 countries. But I wouldn't mind seeing a separate deal with Canada, where you have one type of product, so to speak, and a separate deal with Mexico. These are 2 very different countries. It's been a lousy deal for the United States from day one. We lose a lot of money with Canada, and we lose a fortune with Mexico. And it's not going to happen like that anymore. I mean, Mexico has taken our car companies, a big percentage of them. And we can't do that. And look, the American worker agrees with me. Obviously, the stock market agrees, because when you look at what's going on with the stocks, they're starting to see I'm right. But if you take the European Union, and you see the kind of tariff they charge, and then we don't, that's called not fair trade. I want fair trade. I like free trade, but I want fair trade. At a minimum, I want fair trade. And we're going to have it for our workers and for our companies. And you know what? The other side understands it. To be honest with you, they cannot believe that they've gotten away with this for so many decades.
Canada, the UK, some of our closest allies are complaining long and loud about these new tariffs. What do you say to that?
They're our allies, but they take advantage of us economically. And so I agree. I love Canada. I love Mexico. I love them. But Mexico's making over $100 billion a year. And they're not helping us with our border, because they have strong laws and we have horrible laws. We have horrible border laws. They have strong. They could solve our border problem if they wanted, but they don't want to. And when they want to, then I'll be happy. But I think we have a good chance of doing some great trade deals that will make America great again, right? That's what we're doing. But America has picked up, we've made about $8 trillion in value since, we're double the size of the economy of China. We've picked up a lot of value, a lot of wealth since I've been president. More than $8 trillion. And that's a very low number, because we're talking stock market wealth. I'm talking about beyond that. Our companies are doing great. We're doing great. Our military is rebuilding. We have a lot of great things going. We're going to straighten out trade. The trade is going to be easy. And other countries understand. When I talk to them, they look at me, and this is in closed doors, not for you people, and they essentially say, we can't believe we've gotten away with this for so long. It's like you guys can't believe you've gotten away with it for so long.
What's on the agenda for Camp David?
I want everyone to watch, because I'll tell you what, we have such a great country right now at this level. I don't think we've ever been on an economic scale. You look at the numbers, 3.8%. We have the lowest numbers of unemployment that we've had. Is it 50 years? I think it's 50 years, right? So we have some of the best economic numbers we've ever had as a nation, and that goes a long way. And we're building something very special. Just remember, we're twice the size, our economy, twice the size of China. Good meeting today. I think it's a great start.
What's on the agenda for Camp David?
Just a little relaxation and a lot of work. We have a lot of calls set up. I'm calling a lot of the foreign leaders. I'm negotiating trade deals. I'm working hard for you people. Have a good time. Thank you.
And that was President Trump giving us a lot of information, a lot of color on his meeting that lasted almost 2 hours, he said, with the North Koreans. Let's bring back Chris Starwalt. I'm reminded of the title of Corey Lewandowski and Dave Bossi's book, Let Trump Be Trump. And that's what you just saw, the last 20 minutes. The president said that the summit is on June 12th, that he told the press, get your bags ready. You will be going to Singapore. He said this will not be the first meeting and that he never thought it could all get solved in one meeting. He did say another thing, though, that one thing that the South Koreans have really been pushing for could actually get done at that meeting, and that is the possible ending of the Korean War. Do I have that sound to use? All right, play that for Chris.
We talked about ending the war. And, you know, this war has been going on, it's got to be the longest war, almost 70 years, right? And there is a possibility something like that. That's more of a signing of a document that it's very important in one way. Historically, it's very important. But we'll see. We did discuss that, the ending of the Korean War. Can you believe that we're talking about the ending of the Korean War? You're talking about 70 years.
Chris, as a historian, I wondered what you thought about that.
Well, if the ending of the Korean War means the end of the demilitarized zone, where my father was stationed when he was in Korea 50 years ago, this is, you start to now be talking about the reunification of the Korean Peninsula. That is a big deal, and that is not necessarily something China is going to be very happy about the idea
Nor
of.
Japan?
Nor potentially Japan. And then we get into the most complicated issue here. North Korea is not a salvageable state in the form that it is. How do you deconstruct North Korea? If you're really talking about, we're kind of talking about North Korea's nuclear program, but we're really talking about how do you deconstruct this state? How do you undo this? China likes it as a buffer zone, for sure, but we also like having a check on China. If you do away with that DMZ, take those troops out, what happens? What kind of country is this, and who's in charge? This gets to be a real live wire.
The president said he did not open the letter. He said that the North Korean, the director said, you could open it if you want, or you could read it later, and the president said he would read it later. He also made a little joke. He's like, he could be in for a big surprise when he opens the letter, and that he would try to share it if he could in the future. He said one thing that I thought was curious, that the United States would not need to do economic aid for North Korea, that would come from South Korea, China, and Japan. He then mentioned something about something about the hostages that were returned to the United States. I don't know what he meant by that, Chris, but perhaps we will find out. But in the meantime, what we know, the June 12th summit, according to President Trump, it is on. So if you're going to Singapore, get ready, and I'll give you the final word. We have about 18 seconds.
This is quite a time to be alive. 2018 never ceases to disappoint so far.
It's certainly better than 2017, I got to say. All right, thank you for joining us, Chris Starwalt, and everybody there. I'm Dana Perino, and here's Trace Gallagher. He's in for Shep Smith.
I'm Trace Gallagher in for Shepard Smith. Breaking news, the summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un will happen on June 12th in Singapore. That is the word from the president. Watch.
You people are going to have to travel because you'll be in Singapore on June 12th. And I think it'll be a process. It's not, I never said it goes in one meeting. I think it's going to be a process. But the relationships are building, and that's a very positive thing.
A very positive thing. It comes after President Trump met face-to-face with Kim Jong-un's right-hand man at the White House, Vice Chairman Kim Yong-chol, hand-delivering a letter from the North Korean dictator to President Trump. The president says it was a very nice letter, a very interesting letter, but the president wouldn't say exactly what was in it. He said it led to a 2-hour conversation with the North Koreans. President Trump telling reporters he thinks Kim Jong-un is committed to getting rid of his nukes. Let's get to the chief White House correspondent, John Roberts. He's live on the North Lawn. And, John, you were in the pool for the reporters. A little confusing because he said the letter was interesting, and then he said he didn't open the letter. So did he?
Well, he said that he did not open the letter, which is interesting because he said at the beginning, as you pointed out, nice letter, and then toward the end he said, well, I haven't opened it yet. And he said, maybe I'll get a big surprise when I open it. But I asked the president where the state of relations between the United States and North Korea are as of 3 o'clock Eastern time on June 1st. And he said he thought that they were good, and certainly a lot better than they have been between the United States and North Korea over the decades. Meeting with Kim Yong-chol for about an hour and 15 minutes today. That was far longer than anybody thought. We were initially told by the White House that Yong-chol was going to come in and deliver the letter to the president. There you see him walking down the colonnade with the chief of staff, John Kelly. We heard that he was just going to simply drop off the letter and then was going to be on his way back out. And then it was on for 15 minutes and then a half an hour and then half an hour stretched into an hour and beyond. And the president said when they sat down together, they just started having a very interesting conversation. They went over so many different topics. They went over sanctions. They went over denuclearization. They did not go over human rights. The president said that would probably be saved for another conversation. But he also said that they talked about ending the Korean War and ending it on June the 12th. So that would be a monumental step forward in history if they actually prepare a document. I asked the president if they had a document prepared or were working on one. He seemed to suggest that they were. So, Trace, if that summit on June 12th, which the president said is just kind of a preliminary get-to-know-you meeting, ended up with a peace agreement being signed between North Korea, South Korea, the United States, and I believe China's got some say in it as well, that truly would be historic. Trace?
Yeah, and he said it was a process again and again, and then he brings out this, we could end the Korean War on June 12th. I was fascinated, John, by your initial question to the president when you talked about denuclearization, because there has been kind of a difference in defining denuclearization between the United States and North Korea. There's a big gap in there.
Yeah. We don't exactly know what North Korea is thinking about that. I mean, if we've seen in the past, they take incremental little steps toward making it look like they're ending their nuclear program, at the same time that they're taking steps to beef up their nuclear program. And then John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, told our Chris Wallace back on April the 29th that he thought the Libyan model for denuclearization would apply. Now, what Bolton was talking about was the idea of boxing up the North Korean nuclear program and shipping it to maybe the national lab in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, is what happened with Libya. But what the North Koreans read was the fact that the United States never gave Muammar Gaddafi security guarantees, and some 8 years later he ended up being pulled out of a sewer, shot in the head, other things done to him, and then dumped back in a ditch. And North Korea looked at that and said, that's not the model that we're looking for. But the president came out and said, that is not the model we're thinking about. We're thinking about giving you political guarantees, security guarantees, economic guarantees. And I asked the president, I said, how can you transform? Because he talked about this in his speech to the parliament in Seoul back in November that we were at. He talked about a transformation of North Korea from this hermit kingdom with a terrible economy and people are starving to a vibrant economy and one that can provide for its people and one that joins the world, the world of nations. And I said to the president, how can you do that and still leave Kim in place? Because he has been, of course, the head of this repressive regime, one of the most repressive in the world. The president thought that it could be done. So clearly, these conversations that have been going on between the United States and North Korea are leading down a path where they think that there can be some transformative process that leaves an authoritarian regime in place but still has that effect where prosperity can start to flow down to the people of North Korea who have been so badly repressed and oppressed over the decades. Trace?
So the bottom line here is that John Roberts has a trip coming up very soon. And my question is, when do you think, John, we're going to start getting the details of how this thing is going to go?
Well, that's what the teams in Singapore and in the DMZ right now, the White House teams, one from the State Department, one from the National Security Council, actually led by the Deputy Chief of Staff, Joe Hagan. Team in Singapore, a team at the DMZ. Joe Hagan's team in Singapore is going over the logistics for a meeting, down to who's in what room, when, and what they're going to talk about and set the agenda. And then the team that's in the DMZ is doing the diplomatic part of it, because what you want to have, even though it's a get-to-know-you meeting, is at the end of this meeting some sort of communique where you can say, we agreed to A, B, C, D, X, Y, and Z. So that's what's being worked on right now. We don't have any level of detail on all of that, but what we do have is President Trump coming out this afternoon saying, John, it's a good thing you didn't cancel your ticket when I canceled the summit last Thursday because you're going to Singapore on Friday.
You are going to Singapore, John Roberts. It is fascinating, it is historic, and it is mind-blowing. John Roberts live for us on the North Lawn. Trace. Back to you as the news warrants. Let's bring in Josh Letterman. He is a foreign policy reporter for the Associated Press. And again, it's just mind-blowing, Josh. One, the president says, he was kind of teasing the news, the media, saying, wouldn't you love to see what's in the letter and how much do you got? And the letter was fascinating and interesting. And then a little later he says, no, I haven't read the letter yet at all.
Right, Trace. Clearly the letter was an excuse for him to be able to come here, have this really historic interaction with the United States president. The letter in and of itself is symbolic. It's not the whole deal here. But to see how quick the president was after this 2-hour meeting in the Oval Office to raise the expectations for this summit that's now barreling ahead on June 12th. And it didn't really sound like a get-to-know-you meeting that he was describing. It sounded like a major moment. This is going to be the start of a relationship between two countries, as he said, that have not had diplomatic relations in decades. So now heading into this summit that's going to happen in Singapore, a lot on the table for this to be able to meet the bar that President Trump has set today.
Yeah, and if you missed it, we've been talking about this now for the better part of an hour. I want to play some more sound from President Trump as he came out and he was talking to reporters about the relationship between the United States, the evolving relationship between the United States and North Korea. Watch this.
Well, I think they're okay. I mean, I think they're good. Is it like the relationships we have with a couple of other countries? Probably not, right? But I think the relationship we have right now with North Korea is as good as it's been in a long time. They had no relationship under the previous administration. There was nothing. It was nothing. They were explaining. It was just a nothing. Nothing was done. Hey, folks, this should not be up to me. This should have been handled a long time ago. This got to a very critical point. This should have been handled many years ago, not only by President Obama, but by other presidents that preceded me. This shouldn't be done now. This should have been done years ago.
And here's the amazing thing about this, Josh, is that everything seems like it's going forward and doing very well right now. But, you know, the funny thing is you talk about, you know, the South Koreans, they believe that Kim Jong-chol, the number 2 man in North Korea, is a very bad guy. They believe he was behind an attack on a naval ship back in 2010 that killed 46 sailors. And we believe that he was behind the attack on Sony Pictures. So this isn't a guy who's very coveted in the United States, and all of a sudden you have this mini summit at the White House today that's leading to this June 12th summit. This is moving at breakneck speed.
It is. And look, supporters of what the president is doing would say, you don't make friends with your friends. You make friends. I mean, you don't seek peace with people that you're already close with. You seek them with enemies, with people that you have really difficult issues, such as the ones that you just described, our problems and South Korea's problems with North Korea's behavior over the past many decades. So there is a wide gap that needs to be bridged by these two countries. But look, he's talking about how things are better than they've been in forever. It was just a few months ago that President was threatening fire and fury against the North Koreans. And what has really changed from then until now, other than a change in rhetoric? We haven't seen a change in behavior other than those 3 Americans that were released by North Korea. But on the key issues that the U.S. and its allies are worried about, the nuclear issues, the other troubling behavior, that still has to be worked out by the president and Kim Jong-un when they meet in Singapore.
Yeah, and if people are thinking that this is, all about Lucy and Charlie Brown and moving the football again, this man, this Kim Jong-chol who came here, he has the ear of Kim Jong-un. We know that. He was at both of the meetings with President Xi in China. He was at both of the summits with South Korea. He was right next to Kim Jong-un, and he's the one that delivered this letter to the president today. And Josh, my question to you is, the letter really wasn't read, but it seems like the letter really isn't that important. It's kind of a symbol, if you will, for the fact that, Kim Jong-un is saying, okay, this is my token of respect for the president of the United States. I'm going to write him a letter. Doesn't really matter what's in it. We're going to have this meeting on June 12th. This is just a symbol that they can put in a museum someday.
That's right. It's a show of respect, one leader to another, and it's an effort to try to correct what was a show of disrespect that President Trump was complaining about only a week and a half or 2 weeks ago when he canceled the summit. So North Korea trying to show, we're here, we're ready to actually make this go forward. But the other symbolic part of this that we shouldn't lose track of is how significant this will be back at home in North Korea. This type of Oval Office reception, a senior North Korean in the White House with the president, very significant, and the kind of relationship with a major world power that North Korea has wanted to be able to project to its people for quite some time.
Yeah, we were stunned by the president talking about ending the Korean War after so many years. I want to play this soundbite because this is fascinating. Watch.
We talked about it. We talked about ending the war. And, this war has been going on, it's got to be the longest war, almost 70 years, right? And there is a possibility something like that. That's more of a signing of a document that it's very important in one way. Historically, it's very important. But we'll see. We did discuss that, the ending of the Korean War. Can you believe that we're talking about the ending of the Korean War?
And look, nobody's talking about reunifying North and South Korea right now, but still, symbolism goes a long way. And when you're talking about the president of the United States saying on June 12th, we could sign a document that could end the Korean War after decades and decades and decades, that in itself is significant. Josh.
It's hugely significant, Trace, and it's also going to create some anxious allies for the U.S., especially in places like Japan, where they're going to say, now hold on a second, we have a whole lot of work to do before we're talking about ending the war that has been in existence for decades, that armistice agreement in place. You know, there's a whole lot that has not yet been ironed out, and for the president to be already talking about how we're going to end this, possibly within a couple weeks, seems to suggest a rush to have conciliation with North Korea that might not be backed up by the kinds of facts that our allies, specifically in the region, really want to hear about.
Yeah, and in the first part of this, and then I'm going to let you go, Josh, the first part of this news conference the president held, he made it very clear this is a process, right? It's a process. It might take several meetings. And then he jumped in and said, well, we're going to end the Korean War, and then who knows what's going to go on after that. But it really will be maybe months, maybe years, going to take a long time, but this is certainly a step in the right direction.
It is, but look just back at the Iran nuclear deal and how long that took. These are difficult things, technical things to work out, not the kind of thing that you can easily foresee being worked out over a couple of hours in Singapore, Trace.
Josh Letterman, good to see you. Great insight. Thank you. We will have much more ahead on President Trump's announcement that the meeting with Kim Jong-un is back on. Plus, reaction from the State Department is ahead. Imagine, on June 12th, the president is going to go to Singapore and meet with the North Korean dictator, and we could end the Korean War. More on that coming up.
Say what is